The Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus held an online town hall meeting on Sunday focusing on the issue of election management in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Panelists included current and former election officials from several Caribbean jurisdictions, including Trinidad and Tobago's Chief Elections Officer Fern Narcis Scope. Knowing that a general election was due in her country by the end of 2020, Narcis Scope said meant that her Elections and Boundaries Commission was making preparations for the preservation of public health while conducting a poll as soon as the pandemic reached the Twin Island Republic. However, despite a number of recommended changes and adjustments coming from the EBC, legislative restrictions presented a major challenge, something Narcis Scope says needs to be addressed with urgency if regional governments are truly invested in making voting more accessible to citizens.
The level of innovation in changing our processes locally was restricted by the need to remain within the confines of the current legislation governing the conduct of our elections here in Trinidad and Tobago. And this, my friends, is the real challenge. We in the Caribbean have become seduced in complacency in our election management procedures. We have mastered the traditional approach to conducting elections, and any calls for electoral reform are largely overlooked or met with suspicion and resistance. Some of us have also been resistant introducing greater technology in our electoral processes, and as such, our systems are not as flexible as they could have been.
Fellow panelist Claudius Francis, a former member of St. Lucia's Election Commission and the current Speaker of the island's House of Assembly, asserted that the pandemic experience underscored the need for elections bodies across the region to be in a perpetual state of readiness.
But I want to disagree with them on the notion that somehow, because it was an election year, that somehow excuses a government or an election commission that is not in an election year. The fact of the matter is, there's a reason you are placed on an election commission. That is to ensure when the elections are held. It's not like you don't know that a prime minister has the prerogative of calling elections at any time within the 5 years. The pandemic hit us March, April 2020. Every elections commission in the Caribbean ought to have been preparing Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. You can't wait to say because we are in election year, that's when the plan is going to go into effect. Moreover, Barbados is possibly the 10th or 11th country in the Caribbean to be holding elections during the pandemic. So they ought to have learned a number of lessons from all of the previous elections, which is what we did.
With the pandemic unlikely to dissipate in the immediate future, and with several regional elections expected in the next 12 to 24 months, the question of COVID-19's impact on the conduct of democracy will be an open one for some time to come.